holding a tablet that was written thousands of years ago and being able to read what it says. It's an amazing feeling.
This tablet shows us that Babylonian surveying became a lot more accurate during this time, which is understandable because people are starting to...
The Babylonian civilization has long been regarded as one of the cradles of human advancement, a place where mathematics, astronomy, law, and writing developed in ways that shaped the future of societies far beyond Mesopotamia. For centuries, scholars have studied tablets unearthed from the ruins of Babylon, decoding their cuneiform inscriptions and attempting to reconstruct the lives and beliefs of those who lived nearly 4 millennia ago. Among those artifacts sat a tablet, enigmatic and resistant to interpretation, filled with sequences of etched marks that eluded even the most skilled experts. For generations, it was cataloged, stored, and occasionally revisited, but its meaning remained locked in stone. That changed when artificial intelligence was applied to it, and what emerged from the decoding was not a benign account of crops, trade, or daily rituals. It was something deeply unsettling. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The tablet itself is over 3,700 years old, originating in the Old Babylonian period. Unlike other tablets that dealt with trade ledgers, legal codes, or astronomical observations, this one carried a complexity that confounded linguists. Its script seemed fragmented, filled with sequences of symbols that did not conform to the expected formulas of Mesopotamian text. Scholars had speculated that it was either ceremonial, mathematical, or even a record of some forgotten myth, yet no definitive consensus formed. Then, with the advent of machine learning and neural networks trained on vast corpuses of cuneiform texts, researchers fed the mysterious inscriptions into an AI system designed not only to translate, but to infer context from ancient languages. The output it produced shook even hardened archaeologists. What the AI revealed was a series of passages describing patterns in the skies, violent upheavals on the earth, and warnings inscribed with a tone that suggested urgency rather than mere observation. The tablet seemed to be less about recording events and more about predicting them, almost as if the Babylonians had attempted to encode their understanding of cosmic cycles into a warning for the future. The text spoke of stars aligning in configurations that heralded destruction, of great waves that would swallow cities, and of fire from above that scorched the land. What startled scholars most was the precision. Where myth usually meanders in metaphor, this tablet employed numbers, astronomical data, and calculations. It was not written like a poem, it was crafted like a manual. The AI had cross-referenced the data with known Babylonian astronomical records and found that many of the alignments described in the tablet were real, charted with a sophistication that rivaled Greek and later medieval astronomy. The Babylonians had tracked the movements of the heavens with extraordinary precision, and the tablet encoded this information in relation to catastrophic events. The implication was chilling. They believed they had identified recurring cosmic triggers for calamities on Earth. The AI flagged phrases that translated into warnings about the blackening of the skies, the rivers breaking their boundaries, and the return of the fire from the firmament. To the Babylonians, these were not distant myths, but cyclical inevitabilities. Archaeologists accustomed to finding lists of deaths, inventories of sheep, or ritual hymns suddenly faced a document that read like a survival guide from antiquity. Its language carried an almost prophetic certainty. What unnerved them further was that some of the alignments noted in the text corresponded with events that modern geologists and historians associate with known disasters. The collapse of certain Bronze Age cultures, widespread droughts, and evidence of meteoric impacts in ancient layers of sediment bore striking similarities to the warnings recorded on the tablet. The AI did not claim causation, but it drew patterns that seemed too close to coincidence. The more researchers analyzed the decoded text, the more disturbing the implications became. It was as though the Babylonians had not only observed cosmic rhythms, but also feared them to the extent that they attempted to inscribe their warnings for posterity. In their worldview, the heavens dictated the fate of kingdoms, and rulers employed astrologers not as mere fortune tellers, but as state advisors who interpreted cosmic patterns as omens of conquest or collapse. The tablet seemed to embody this practice at its most extreme, less an omen for a king and more a broad alarm intended for humanity itself. The terrifying element came from the passages that seemed to leap across time, resonating with modern anxieties. The AI produced translations that spoke of great heat rising from the south, the seas rising as if climbing ladders, and the night where no stars are seen. These phrases, while written in the symbolic style of the era, eerily paralleled descriptions of phenomena recognizable today: heat waves, rising sea levels, and atmospheric conditions obscuring the skies. The chilling question arose: had the Babylonians witnessed earlier cycles of climate or cosmic catastrophe, and were they warning that these cycles would return? One of the tablet's most enigmatic sections detailed the motion of a celestial body described not as one of the familiar planets, but as a dark star that traversed the heavens irregularly, bringing with it devastation. Scholars debated whether this was purely mythological or a poetic reference to comets and asteroids. The AI, however, cross-referenced this with records of unusual celestial sightings in Babylonian astronomy and suggested that what they observed might indeed have been a series of cometary passages. If so, the tablet was not only a warning, but also an early recognition of how astronomical objects beyond the predictable planets could bring ruin to the Earth. What truly made the decoding terrifying was not simply the content, but the precision with which it was delivered. Ancient civilizations often veiled their knowledge in metaphor, but this tablet carried calculations, intervals of years, and geometric descriptions of alignments. The Babylonians, aided by their remarkably advanced mathematics, had plotted cycles that the AI suggested aligned with catastrophic markers. If accurate, then what was uncovered was not only history but a prediction model, thousands of years old, left by a people who believed they had decoded the patterns of destruction woven into the fabric of the cosmos. The implications for modern readers are staggering. If an ancient civilization without telescopes, satellites, or modern science could observe and record such cycles, what does that say about their knowledge that has since been lost? The tablet's warnings about fire from the sky and upheavals from the earth mirror humanity's greatest existential fears today: asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and climate change. Yet these were recorded nearly 4 millennia ago, suggesting that the Babylonians had experienced such devastation themselves and sought to warn the future. Historians now wrestle with the possibility that the tablet represents not just a cultural artifact, but a fragment of ancient scientific knowledge. Some argue that it must be myth, that the AI has overinterpreted symbolic language. Others insist that even if clothed in metaphor, the precision of the astronomical references and the mathematical structure of the tablet indicate that the Babylonians were encoding something they truly observed. The unsettling aspect is that many of the patterns and predictions described have relevance to modern concerns. If cycles of catastrophe do indeed repeat, then the Babylonians may have left behind a warning that transcends their time. The decoding also raises philosophical questions about knowledge and memory. Civilizations rise and fall, and with them entire systems of understanding are often lost. What if the Babylonians had genuinely grasped a fragment of cosmic truth, one that was later buried under centuries of war, conquest, and cultural upheaval? The tablet serves as a haunting reminder that knowledge, once lost, can take millennia to resurface. It also underscores the possibility that humanity today may not be the first to grapple with the terrifying recognition of cyclical destruction on a planetary scale. For researchers, the AI decoding was both a triumph and a chilling revelation. On one hand, it showcased the extraordinary potential of artificial intelligence to unlock the mysteries of the past, opening doors to knowledge that human scholars alone could not pry open. On the other, it thrust them into the uncomfortable position of interpreting a message that feels uncomfortably urgent. The tablet does not read like a relic of the past, but like a voice calling out across thousands of years, warning of dangers still ahead. The sense of terror stems not from the belief that the Babylonians were prophets, but from the possibility that they were careful observers of natural cycles, ones that humanity may have forgotten but now faces again. If fire from the heavens refers to cometary impacts, then modern astronomers know such events are inevitable, not hypothetical. If seas rising were the result of climate fluctuations, then modern science confirms these changes recur in cycles influenced by both natural and human factors. The thought that an ancient civilization encoded this awareness into stone, only for it to remain unread until the rise of artificial intelligence, unsettles the imagination. The implications ripple outward. If one tablet contains such knowledge, what else lies encoded in the countless cuneiform fragments that remain untranslated in museum collections worldwide? Millions of tablets sit in storage, many fragmented or cataloged but not studied. If AI can decode them with the same depth, humanity may soon discover that the past speaks with a voice far more urgent and detailed than we ever imagined. The Babylonian tablet is just one example, but it has opened the door to the terrifying possibility that ancient civilizations knew more about cycles of catastrophe than we are prepared to accept. The revelation of the Babylonian tablet through the power of artificial intelligence did more than unearth a forgotten fragment of history. It drew humanity into a confrontation with questions that transcend archaeology, language, and science. Once the first wave of shock settled among the scholars who worked on it, the sheer scale of the implications began to emerge. The discovery did not stand alone. It radiated outward into disciplines as diverse as astronomy, theology, philosophy, and even geopolitics. To examine the tablet only as a relic of the past would be to miss the deeper tremors it caused, because its contents thrust themselves into the present moment with an urgency that could not be ignored. The role of AI in the decoding process cannot be overstated. For decades, linguists had cataloged cuneiform texts painstakingly by hand, compiling dictionaries and reference works that required lifetimes of dedication. Yet the Babylonian writing system, with its thousands of wedge-shaped characters, was riddled with ambiguities. Many signs had multiple meanings depending on context, and entire sequences could be read in more than one way. Human translators often had to choose between interpretations, guided by cultural knowledge but limited by bias. The AI, however, approached the problem differently. It did not simply match signs to words. It analyzed patterns across vast datasets of previously translated tablets. It recognized grammatical structures invisible to human intuition, reconstructing missing fragments through probabilistic models. This meant the AI could weave together the fragmented, damaged lines of the mysterious tablet into a coherent whole for the first time. It was not just a matter of translation, but of resurrecting a voice silenced by time. That voice, once restored, spoke with an authority that was unnerving. Unlike the mythic epics or hymns found in other tablets, this one displayed the rhythm of technical writing. Numbers appeared consistently, sequences of astronomical positions aligned with intervals of years, and references to eclipses and planetary conjunctions were marked with a precision suggestive of an observational log. The implication was that the Babylonians who wrote it were not only priests but also scientists of their age, methodically recording cycles in nature. What chilled researchers was the way those cycles were connected to devastation. To them, the patterns in the heavens were not abstract. They were harbingers of destruction. That the Babylonians chose to immortalize these links in a text meant for preservation suggested that they felt compelled to warn whoever might come after them. The question that haunted modern interpreters was whether the warnings were simply ancient superstition or an accurate record of natural rhythms humanity has forgotten. The cosmological worldview of the Babylonians provides important context. They did not see the heavens and the earth as separate domains. The sky was a map of divine will, and celestial bodies were both gods and instruments of fate. To predict the alignment of stars was not merely astronomy, but the interpretation of destiny. Yet when examined through the cold lens of AI, the passages about alignments and catastrophic outcomes were less theological and more empirical than anyone expected. It was as though the Babylonians were recording not just what they believed, but what they observed. Floods following eclipses, droughts after planetary conjunctions, or celestial appearances tied to earthquakes. These correlations may not have been coincidences in their eyes, but repeatable evidence. That they encoded such correlations in cuneiform meant they regarded them as knowledge worth safeguarding, even if the mechanisms behind them were beyond their understanding. For modern scientists, the discovery presented an uncomfortable parallel. Today's climate models and astrophysical simulations often reveal cycles that influence human history in profound ways. Periodic shifts in solar radiation, volcanic eruptions, and asteroid encounters all leave their imprint on civilizations. The possibility that the Babylonians had identified such cycles through observation alone was a sobering reminder that ancient peoples, though lacking advanced technology, were not blind to the patterns of nature. The AI's reconstruction suggested that their warning was not metaphorical doomsaying, but a recognition of recurring forces capable of erasing kingdoms. This created a bridge across millennia, where the ancient and the modern gazed at the same sky and drew similar conclusions. Catastrophe is inevitable, it is cyclical, and it cannot be ignored. The terrifying element of the decoding was magnified by the sense of scale conveyed in the text. The Babylonians wrote not of localized misfortunes, but of world-shaking upheavals. They spoke of rivers overwhelming lands far from their banks, skies darkened so thoroughly that no light penetrated for days, and fire descending from above with a force that obliterated entire settlements. In their words lay the memory of disasters so vast it scarred their collective psyche. If these accounts were rooted in historical events, then they suggest the Babylonians may have witnessed phenomena on par with supervolcanic eruptions or asteroid strikes. To imagine such events being observed without modern science is unsettling enough, but to realize they may have been cyclical, returning at intervals marked by celestial signs, adds a layer of dread. One of the most debated passages in the tablet described what the AI rendered as the returning wanderer of the heavens. This entity, tracked over generations, was said to appear irregularly, its approach marked by a fiery trail and followed by devastation. Scholars speculated that this was an early record of a comet or rogue celestial object. If so, the Babylonians may have been among the first to connect the arrival of transient astronomical phenomena with destruction on Earth. This fits disturbingly well with modern understanding, as humanity now knows that cometary impacts have shaped Earth's history. The extinction of species and sudden climate shifts are written into the geological record. The notion that ancient observers recognized such patterns long before telescopes, only to encode them in a tablet buried for millennia, gives the text an aura of chilling authenticity. The decoded content also forced scholars to reassess Babylonian religion itself. If priests were recording cycles of disaster and encoding them in ritualistic language, then the boundary between myth and science in their culture was thinner than previously believed. Their gods may have been metaphors for forces they observed, the god of storms representing volcanic eruptions, the god of fire symbolizing meteoric impacts, the goddess of floods tied to rising rivers. By couching empirical observations in divine language, they ensured the survival of their warnings in a culture that revered the will of the gods. The AI's translation stripped away much of the metaphor and revealed the skeleton of data beneath. The terror lay in recognizing that behind the myths, there may have been a body of empirical knowledge encoded in ways that modern readers can finally perceive. What unsettled researchers most profoundly was not simply the accuracy of the astronomical records, but the unmistakable tone of urgency. This was not a casual text, nor a private calculation. It was crafted as though to endure, written in durable clay, and stored where it might outlast the fragile scrolls or ephemeral oral traditions of the time. It was as though the Babylonians knew they were passing on a legacy of knowledge that future generations would need to confront. That urgency, now resurrected by AI thousands of years later, gave the discovery its terrifying power. It was as if the Babylonians were speaking directly to the modern age, insisting that the cycles they observed were not finished, that the wheel of catastrophe would turn again. The implications extend beyond history into the present. If ancient peoples tracked cyclical catastrophes and encoded them into warnings, then humanity may be living inside one of those cycles now. Rising seas, extreme heat, and skies darkened by wildfire smoke resonate disturbingly with the phrases AI translated from the tablet. Even if the Babylonians misunderstood the mechanisms, they may have correctly identified the symptoms. To ignore their warnings would be to dismiss the possibility that ancient memory holds truths modern science is only now rediscovering. The decoding also revealed something about the nature of human fear itself. Across millennia, civilizations have sought to grapple with forces beyond their control. For the Babylonians, it was the heavens that dictated fate. For modern humans, it is physics, geology, and climate science. Yet the emotional resonance is the same. A recognition of fragility in the face of vast, impersonal cycles. That a tablet carved thousands of years ago can still inspire dread today speaks to the continuity of human vulnerability. The Babylonians knew their place in the cosmos was precarious, and so do we. Another dimension to the discovery is its challenge to historical chronology. If the Babylonians had indeed recorded catastrophic events tied to celestial cycles, then the history of the ancient world may need to be reinterpreted. Collapses of early civilizations, long attributed to vague causes like invasion or resource depletion, may instead be connected to natural catastrophes timed by cosmic rhythms. The fall of kingdoms, the abandonment of cities, and the migration of peoples could all fit into a larger pattern of recurring planetary upheavals. The tablet thus forces historians to reconsider not only Babylonian culture, but the entire trajectory of the ancient world as a tapestry woven through cycles of destruction and renewal. The unsettling message is not that catastrophe is avoidable, but that it is inevitable. The Babylonians inscribed their fear in stone because they understood that destruction was not a matter of if, but when. Their text reads like a manual for survival, yet its most terrifying element is its recognition of inevitability. By preserving this awareness, they offered not reassurance, but a warning that echoes in the present. The AI decoding made that warning legible again, and with it came the realization that humanity is still subject to the same forces, still under the same sky that terrified the Babylonians. The discovery of this tablet also raises questions about human continuity. How many times has knowledge of cyclical catastrophe been discovered and lost? How many civilizations have glimpsed the patterns of destruction only to be obliterated before they could preserve them? The survival of this one tablet may be a rare accident, a fragile remnant of wisdom from a culture otherwise silenced by time. That it reached us at all feels uncanny, as though history itself conspired to deliver its warning when humanity once again faces global upheaval. The terror lies not only in its content, but in the realization that we may be standing at the edge of the same cycles they described. The moment the ancient tablet yielded its meaning to artificial intelligence, a new wave of questions surged through the fields of archaeology, linguistics, and science. Yet, beyond the technical and historical implications, there arose something far more profound: a confrontation with humanity's enduring relationship with fear, knowledge, and the unknown. The Babylonian text, once inert clay, suddenly became alive with resonance, pulling modern minds into the psychological and cultural world of a civilization that had grappled with forces larger than itself. To explore this further is to journey through the deeper significance of the decoding, the way it touches on human nature, memory, and the patterns of history that stretch across ages. The text did more than map the skies or warn of disasters. It revealed how knowledge was preserved and transmitted in ways that transcended time. Babylonian culture thrived in an environment where survival demanded constant vigilance against floods from the Tigris and Euphrates, droughts in a harsh climate, or invasions from rival states. To endure, they developed intricate systems of writing, mathematics, and astronomy. The decoded tablet embodied this survival instinct, turning their collective memory of calamity into structured data, then embedding it within the permanence of clay. In doing so, they demonstrated a profound awareness that disaster was not only physical, but also cultural. Without memory, survival was incomplete. This awareness transforms the tablet into more than an artifact. It becomes a monument to humanity's refusal to forget what threatens its existence. One of the most striking aspects revealed by the AI analysis was the layered nature of the writing. On the surface, it carried a narrative, cosmic alignments tied to devastation. Beneath that, however, lay embedded numerical sequences, astronomical observations, and cycles marked with uncanny precision. This duality suggests the tablet was designed to operate on multiple levels, comprehensible to priests and rulers in its religious and symbolic form, but also legible to the mathematically trained as a system of data. In modern terms, it resembled an encrypted document, readable only to those who knew how to interpret its patterns. This dual encoding reveals a sophistication that reshapes the way we understand Babylonian intellectual culture. They were not merely storytellers cloaking fear and myth, they were also analysts encoding patterns for future recognition. What makes this revelation terrifying is the possibility that the Babylonians were not alone in this practice. If their priests and astronomers embedded warnings in durable texts, other cultures may have done the same, each encoding memory in their own symbolic language. Egyptian inscriptions, Mayan codices, or Vedic hymns may all carry similar fragments of encoded knowledge, waiting for modern tools to strip away metaphor and reveal the data beneath. The Babylonian tablet thus becomes not just a discovery in itself, but a key to a broader understanding of ancient civilizations as custodians of cyclical memory. If this is true, humanity stands at the threshold of unlocking a collective archive of ancient warnings spread across the world. The AI decoding also exposed something haunting about the continuity of fear. Civilizations long separated by geography and time all developed myths of floods, fire from the heavens, and periods of darkness. Scholars have long debated whether these were coincidental or whether they stemmed from common human anxieties projected onto the natural world. The Babylonian tablet tips the balance of that debate by suggesting that at least some of these myths were grounded in real cycles of catastrophe. If so, then the recurring stories of destruction across cultures are less coincidence and more testimony, echoes of shared experiences recorded in different tongues. The terror comes from realizing that these were not isolated cultural anxieties but fragments of a common human memory of survival in a world shaped by disaster. Another dimension brought into focus is the philosophy of time itself. Modern societies often perceive time as linear, progressing forward with innovation and growth. The Babylonian worldview, as reconstructed from the tablet, was profoundly cyclical. They believed that destruction and renewal repeated, dictated by cosmic forces beyond human control. This cyclical perspective instilled in them both a fatalism and a determination to prepare. In contrast, modern humans often cling to the belief that disasters can be permanently overcome through technology. The Decoded tablet forces a confrontation between these worldviews. What if the Babylonians were correct in perceiving time as a wheel rather than a line? If catastrophe is destined to repeat, then the modern belief in progress may be a fragile illusion, and the ancient fatalism may hold a terrifying truth. The implications extend into the psychology of leadership and governance. For the Babylonians, rulers depended on astrologers and priests to interpret cosmic warnings. Political decisions were influenced by omens tied to celestial events. If the Decoded tablet was indeed designed as a guide to catastrophe, then it may have played a role in shaping political strategy: when to plant, when to fortify cities, when to launch wars, or when to seek peace. In this sense, the tablet was not merely a warning for individuals, but a tool of statecraft. That realization suggests that ancient leaders may have based critical decisions on cycles of disaster identified by their astronomers. Modern parallels emerge uncomfortably. Today, leaders rely on scientific reports, climate models, and data-driven forecasts to guide policy. The continuity is stark. Ancient or modern, societies turn to interpreters of data, whether priests or scientists, to navigate existential threats. The decoded content also illuminates the role of fear in shaping cultural identity. For the Babylonians, fear of cosmic and terrestrial catastrophe did not paralyze them. It drove them to observe, record, and encode. Their identity as a civilization was entwined with vigilance. The terror they felt became a foundation for knowledge. This pattern suggests that fear, far from being a weakness, has historically been a catalyst for human advancement. Yet the terrifying realization is that fear is also cyclical. Each era believes it has overcome the fears of the past, only to confront new ones that echo the old. The Babylonian warnings resurrected by AI remind humanity that fear itself may be one of the most enduring legacies across time. Another layer of significance lies in the act of decoding itself. That it required artificial intelligence to interpret the tablet highlights a paradox. Ancient humans encoded knowledge durable enough to last thousands of years, but it took modern machines to finally unlock it. This raises profound questions about the relationship between humans, technology, and memory. Without AI, the tablet may have remained an enigma forever. Yet with AI, its meaning bursts forth in ways that reshape history. The terrifying irony is that the Babylonians may have intended their warning for human posterity, but it was a machine that ultimately delivered it. This convergence of ancient memory and artificial intelligence underscores the strange role of technology as mediator between past and future. The decoded warnings also resonate with modern existential risks beyond natural disasters. In an age of nuclear weapons, engineered pandemics, and artificial intelligence itself, humanity lives under the shadow of self-created threats as well as natural ones. Reading the Babylonian warnings through this lens, the parallels are unsettling. Just as they inscribed cycles of devastation tied to the heavens, modern humans grapple with cycles of destruction tied to technology and geopolitics. The continuity lies in the recognition that fragility is inherent to civilization, whether threatened by the cosmos or by human invention. The Babylonian tablet thus serves as a mirror reflecting not only natural cycles, but also the recurring vulnerability of human societies to annihilation. The sheer act of survival across millennia also gives the tablet an aura of destiny. How many tablets were destroyed by flood, fire, or conquest? How many were shattered or eroded beyond recognition? That this one survived, intact enough to be decoded, carries an almost mythic significance. It suggests that certain fragments of knowledge endure not by accident but by necessity, as though history itself preserves what must not be forgotten. To hold such a tablet is to hold a message that has defied time, violence, and decay to reach the present. The terror lies in acknowledging that its survival may have purpose, that its warnings have been delivered at a moment when humanity most needs to hear them again. The decoding also raises questions about the nature of prophecy. Modern readers, trained to separate myth from science, may dismiss the tablet as superstition, yet its precision in astronomical observation complicates that dismissal. It was not prophecy in the sense of divine revelation, but prediction born of pattern recognition. This blurs the boundary between ancient prophecy and modern science. Both rely on identifying cycles, extrapolating outcomes, and warning of what lies ahead. The Babylonian tablet, once decoded, reads like an ancient scientific report couched in religious language. The terrifying realization is that prophecy and science may be two sides of the same impulse, the human need to see beyond the present and prepare for what is coming. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on AI decoding ancient Babylonian secrets today? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.